So we think this is pretty significant. Clearly, quite a bit we don't and won't know about it. But as Liz just outlined, the Washington Post gives the start of a pretty interesting story. Kevin Gosztola is a blogger with Firedog Lake, and he's here to talk more about this. So, Kevin, the kill list is out. The disposition matrix is in. What's the difference even between these two?
It seems to be an evolution, or maybe taking it to the next level, to have this, as they call it, disposition matrix. Some people are reacting and calling it a dystopian matrix. I mean, it really seems like this recipe for perpetual war, for having this national security policy in place where they can continue to take out targets, and those targets are not people that we will necessarily get to know were guilty of anything. We aren't going to necessarily get to see the evidence that the government had before them to make the decision to execute those people, but we're just going to be asked to trust them, as this has been the policy for the last 2 or 3 years with the Obama administration, to just trust them and not ask questions.
Well, it's really interesting, too. As you know, 2 weeks from the election, we've been hearing a lot of stuff on the campaign during these last few months about what a future will look like under both President Obama, under Mitt Romney. Both agree they would like to stick to the 2014 deadline to get out of Afghanistan. They talk about a future without war. These lists, this matrix, if you will, doesn't look like a war is winding down.
It's taking war out of the conventional way that we are used to it. It's taking it out of the realm of occupation and moving it into being more mobile and easier for Americans to tolerate, because the main point here is American lives aren't at stake. They're putting drone pilots in place to take care of it.
But as a result, Kevin, I mean, a lot of polls show that this is a popular form of war. Let's keep the boots off the ground. Let's use these, unmanned aerial vehicles, these remote control weapons, if you will. Fewer Americans' lives will be at risk. And I know they were mentioned at the presidential debate earlier in the week. It was one question, though, and it was only answered by Mitt Romney. Let me play a little snippet of what he said.
I believe that we should use any and all means necessary to take out people who pose a threat to us and our friends around the world. And it's widely reported that drones are being used in drone strikes, and I support that entirely and feel the president was right to up the usage of that technology, and believe that we should continue to use it to continue to go after the people who represent a threat to this nation.
And basically what Romney said is in agreement with Obama. They agree on drones, and frankly, again, Kevin, a lot of the American public does. So talk a little bit about drones sort of as a political tool.
Politically, you're correct. I mean, the two major political parties, the Republicans and Democrats, both have the same position. And I think this is what, if we're going to put it in the political realm, this is where, not to stray too far from the issue of drones, but this is where you really need to highlight and emphasize this Commission on Presidential Debates keeping out voices like Gary Johnson or Jill Stein, who would have been in the debate and would have been talking about drones, are not there. And so if we're going to talk about politics and the reason why many Americans wouldn't be exposed to the criticisms that some political leaders have, it's because of the electoral politics.
Well, Kevin, let me interrupt you. Since you mention it, a lot of people aren't talking about these third-party voices, but we, as you may know, aired that third-party debate last night, and we do have a little bit about what some of those candidates said about drones. So I'll go ahead and play that then, since you mentioned it.
We need to end the drone wars, not bring the drones home, because they're already coming home. We need to put an end to the use of drones and actually lead, not to lead this development of a new arms race.
There's a reason why we shouldn't be using drones. It's because we don't just take out the target, we take out a lot of innocent civilians in these countries where these drones attack.
So I think Governor Johnson sort of hit the nail on the head here. It's not just drones killing terror suspects, it's drones killing other people who are near those terror suspects. Talk a little bit about some of the other casualties that really are not discussed.
Well, today there was a woman that was reportedly killed in Pakistan. Who knows who she was? But the fact is that, and who knows if she was in that disposition matrix? You know, nobody's ever going to really know. There's another story that came out from Reuters that in Yemen, the militants that U.S.-backed militia were going after with drones and whatever operations have been driven underground, and now they're in sleeper cells. I mean, that just seems like a perpetuation of a nightmare. And, you know, what Gary Johnson is saying is very critical, because the blowback, the fact that there may be, you know, you can mark it on the books right now. You can say, look, we eliminated this guy, we eliminated that guy. But 10 years down the road, what kind of world are we looking at here? It's as if now America is in the business of fighting terror and needs to have terror in order to keep the business operating.
I think another unintended consequence, not often discussed in addition to killing the civilians. And by the way, I mean, you bring up a good point. When it's a woman, people ask questions. What about if it's any male between the age of 14 and, 60? We don't know if that person had any sort of terrorism affiliation, but it's assumed so. But another unintended consequence is sort of, the additional members joining groups, terrorist affiliated groups, because their family, their brother, their friends were killed by these drone strikes. Talk a little bit about that. Again, something not discussed very often.
I mean, it's true. It's absolutely ignored in the sense that in Pakistan, there is this wide, I think, opinion that the drones should not be striking people. They're not saying they don't want to take care of the Taliban, or that, they're happy with having the Pakistan military handle the counterterrorism, but they're very angry that they live in fear and they're afraid that they're going to be attacked, and that drives people into these militant groups because they feel like they want to fight back against the United States. And I'll just say quickly that, people don't ask questions, and should, about Abdul Rahman al-Awlaki, the 16-year-old Denver-born teenager who was killed.
All right, Kevin Gosztola, a blogger for Fire Dog Lake. Thanks so much, as always.